UFC Fight Night, Adesanya versus Imavov. UFC 312, Duplessis versus Strickland 2. There's been debates going around Twitter and Instagram and Reddit and all sorts of places on, is UFC Saudi Arabia's card of Adesanya Imavov, of Shara Magomedov Michael Page, Jairzinho Pavlovich, even the prelims having a ranked Shamil Gaziev, ranked Jasmine Jasudavicius, Mayra Bueno Silva. Is this card better than UFC 312? UFC 312 Duplessis versus Strickland 2 is a pay-per-view in Australia. Adesanya Imavov is a fight night in Saudi Arabia. You are paying for this. You are getting this for your ESPN Plus subscription or for free, whatever you want to say for there. Again, the debate is that UFC 312 is so bad that a fight night the week prior is better. You are paying money for worse fights, is what the theory goes out. And that's kind of what I want to look at here is, maybe a few days ago, I would have been hard stamped to say Adesanya Imavov is probably better than UFC 312. That is when we had 13 fights. Andre Muniz, Ikram Aliskerov canceled. This is a future top 15 middleweight, a former top 15 middleweight. That was on the card. That getting canceled kind of diminishes the card a lot. We had Abdul Karim El Sawadi, Jordan Levitt, and then Oki. That's another, okay fight, but it got canceled as well, diminishing the card a little bit as well. It's 11 fights for the fight night, 13 for the pay-per-view. So, of course, a few days ago when it was 13-13, it was a little bit easier for me to say Adesanya Imavov is going to be the better card, but now it's a lot harder to make the argument. But we're going to still look at the argument, look at this main card, and look at this main card, and look at the prelims, and look at that prelims, and decide which one we do believe is better. First off, Sean Strickland, Dricus du Plessis. Adesanya obviously is a bigger name, bigger star than du Plessis or Sean Strickland. Not by a crazy amount, but he's got the legacy of like 6-7 title defenses and things like that. He's got moving up to the light heavyweight division, being a double champion, not a double champion, but a two-time champion in the middleweight division, being the last man to beat Alex Pereira. There's a lot of things going for Adesanya to be a little bit of a bigger name than Dricus or Sean Strickland. I truly do believe it cancels out, though, because he is a bigger name than Dricus and Sean. But then he's got Imavov in the main event, which obviously Dricus and Sean are bigger names than Imavov. I would honestly say the main event of Adesanya Imavov and du Plessis Sean Strickland, name value wise, are about the same. You kind of equivalence both of those out. They're about the same in the middleweight division. Imavov will likely be a future title contender and possibly a champion. He's only 28 years old. Adesanya, former legend of the middleweight division. And of course, Dricus and Sean Strickland. I think that cancels out. So far, we got canceled out the main events of both cards. Then we got the co-mains. Now, this is where it gets interesting as, yes, Tatiana versus Weili is a title fight, but it's women's MMA. It is women's MMA. So for the average fan, you're going to look at Shara and Michael Page, and you're going to be more hyped for that fight than you are for Weili Tatiana. But for a hardcore like myself, who has been waiting for Tatiana Suarez to get a title fight, who has seen her beat former champ Andrade, Carla Esparza, Alexa Grasso by finish, all of them by finish. I've been waiting for the day that she gets her shot inside of the title fight realm of either the strawweight division or the flyweight division. So, me personally, Weili Zhang, 2 title defenses, a 2-time women's strawweight champion. If she wins this, she'll probably want to move up. To the women's flyweight division. It's a big fight for a hardcore like myself. For you guys watching, if you're not a hardcore fan, you might not like this as much as you like Shara versus Michael Page. I understand. For a hardcore, I clearly believe Tatiana Weili Zhang is a bigger and better fight. So, no, this doesn't cancel out. We're going to have to add a little bit more. I would say that plus Jairzinho. Shar Magomedov, Michael Page, and Jairzinho with Sergey still left there. That might be enough to cancel out a title fight. For women's MMA, I would have to say both. Pavlovich is coming off 2 losses. Jairzinho is barely inside of the top 10. I'm going to have to say 2 big fights. Pavlovich, Rosenstruck, and Michael Venom Page, Shara Magomedov. I'm going to have to cancel out both of them to cancel out Wei Li Zhang, Tatiana Suarez. So what I'm going to have to do, it's a title fight. It's a great women's strawweight, one of the greatest of all time in that weight class, versus an undefeated phenom who has beaten so many champions already before even becoming a champion herself. Then we got Said Nurmagomedov, Vinicius Oliveira. Obviously is a better fight than Taliesin Teixeira, Justin Tafa. We got Faresian, Mike Davis as well. So it's going to knock these down. Jimmy Crute, Rodolfo Bellato. Obviously a big fight. But Said Nurmagomedov, Vinicius Oliveira is much better, much bigger, and is probably going to cancel out both of those. Faresian, Mike Davis, of course, going to be better than Jake Matthews. Francisco Prado, I would say these 3 fights, Taliesin, Justin, Jimmy, Bellato, Jake Matthews, Prado, and Anshul and Quillen, I think all 4 of them in total cancel out Said, Vinicius, and Fares, Mike Davis. These are both fights with fighters right outside of the top 15. And then we got Muhammadjan Naimov and Khan Ofli. You know, I would say around the Jack Jenkins, Gabriel Santos range. I would say around there. I would cancel that out for Jack Jenkins, Gabriel Santos, and Muhammad Naimov, Khan Ofli. They're in a similar range there. So I'll cancel both of those out. Then we got Tom Nolan, Vyacheslav Borsev. Alessandri Taporia is fighting somebody else, actually. Shamil Gaziev, a ranked heavyweight. I would say Cody Haddon Taporia versus his new opponent, and Tom Nolan, Vyacheslav Borsev. That is definitely more than enough to cancel out Shamil Gaziev and lead on a little bit more for the next fight, that is Terrence McKinney, Damir Hadjovic. So I would say Tom Nolan, Vyacheslav Borsev, Taporia versus his next opponent, and Kong Wang, Bruno Brazil. I believe that's enough to cancel out both Terrence McKinney, Damir, and Shamil versus Thomas Peterson. So here's what we're left with. These 3 fights in UFC 312, these 3 fights. Cody Steele and Rong Zhu. I believe that's a better fight than both Hamdi, Bogdan Grad, Lucas Alexander. I believe that's a better fight. So we're going to go down there before that and go Hyun Sung Park, Niem Jargo, Tumen Beryl. I think that's how you say it. And I think that's on a similar level. Undefeated prospect versus a guy that just lost his debut. I believe that's a little bit better than Jamal Post, Hamdi Abdul Wahab. I'll cancel that out. Then we got Kevin Jousset and Jonathan Mikulev. So this bottom fight here is canceled out. This bottom fight here is canceled out. We're left with these 4, and we're left with these 4. And I would have to say, Kevin Jousset, Jonathan Mikulev, obviously a bigger, better fight than Bogdan Grad, Lucas Alexander. Cody Steele, Rong Zhu, also a better fight than Lucas Alexander and Bogdan Grad. But if I'm looking at a fight night and I see this fight and this fight as the main and co-main event, and I'm seeing this fight and this fight as the main and co-main event, I'm going to actually have to say this is better. Jasmine versus Mayra Bueno Silva is enough to cancel out Kevin Jousset, Jonathan Mikulev, and a little bit of Rong Zhu, Cody Steele with Bogdan Grad, Lucas Alexander as well. Because they're ranked. Jasmine's top 10, I believe. And Myra's in the top 5, or at least the top 10 of the women's bantamweight division. Canceling everything out. Looking at the prelims of UFC 312, where it takes sometimes 2 fights to cancel out just 1. Adesanya Imavov is better. Not by a lot. Not by a lot. Again, 13 if we had Muniz, Ikram, and we did have Jordan versus Abdul. For sure. For sure. I would have Adesanya Imavov as the better card. Just overall the better card. But, so many ranked fights on here. Shara, Michael Page, Sergey Pavlovich, Jairzinho. That enough, again, like I'm saying, makes up for the co-main event. Adesanya Imavov is basically enough for me to say. It's kind of equivalent with the main event of Dricus and Sean Strickland. But then you got all the other fights, Saeed and Vinicius, Fares and Davis. It cancels out a lot of the other small fights that UFC 312 has to offer. I'll be straight up. I do believe, again, not by a lot, UFC 312 is a little bit worse than Adesanya versus Imavov. That's what I think. Again, if Abdul didn't get canceled, if Muniz and Ikram didn't get canceled, I'd be pretty hard that this fight is better. This fight card is better than 312, but it wasn't. It got canceled. Now it's basically a 50-50, and I barely lean Adesanya Imavov. Now, that is just on name value and how high they are in the rankings and things like that. Not considering the fights themselves. That's where I want to end this video off. So not considering the fights themselves, how good the fights are going to be. I could make a whole nother video on that. But there's a lot of bangers on UFC 312. They might not be big fights. A debuter versus a 2-1 here in Kevin Jousset. Not a massive fight at all, but a banger. An absolutely great fight. Rongju, Cody Steele. That one isn't necessarily a great fight, but it's got that undefeated future, title contender, ranked lightweight in Cody Steele type of thing. Bruno Brazil, Kong Wang is a banger. Very, very, very fun fight. Topuria versus his new opponent that will be released in a few days is a really, really good fight. Gabriel Santos, Jack Jenkins is a really good fight. Borshev, Tom Nolan is a banger. Anshul versus Quillan, banger. Jake Matthews, probably fight of the night, if we're being honest. Jimmy Crute, Rodolfo Bellato, banger. Heavyweight main event. Not a main event, but could be. It's a banger. Wei Lee versus Tatiana, amazing fight. Sean versus Dricus. So many great fights on UFC 312. What I was getting at is the name value itself on Adesanya Imavov. The rankings, the how high people are ranked, and the name value is overall better on Adesanya versus Imavov. But I could make the argument that the fights are better for UFC 312 because, this fight has Hamdi and Jamal. This is a banger. It does have Myra and Jasmine, who could have the possibility to be a very much wrestling-based fight. Does have a banger in Terrence and Damir. Does have a fight that could be a lot of wrestling. Does have another fight here that could be a lot of wrestling. Could be. Fares versus Mike Davis. I think that's a really good one. Really good fight. Vinicius Saeed, I think, is a really, really good fight. Jairzinho versus Sergey, really, really good fight. Paige Shara, really good fight. Adesanya is a really, really good fight. So there's a lot of really good fights on both cards. That's not the angle I went at it, though. But either way, there's an argument to be made that 312 could be the better card in terms of pure how good the fights are going to be. There could be the argument that Adesanya Imavov is the better card on who are the better fights. What fights are going to be better? What is going to be more exciting? I wasn't going at it from that angle. I was going at it from rankings and name value and star power and things like that. And I think Adesanya Imavov gets it, but even fights themselves, there is a lot of bangers on Adesanya Imavov. So we shall see. I mean, it's a few days left till this card. We got a week and a half left till this card. We'll see if what I'm saying comes true with how good the fights are. But I think name value wise, Adesanya Imavov, better card. What do y'all think? Comment down below. Like, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.